Bill Kirst is a change management expert with a passion for empowering individuals and organizations to reach their true potential. With a vision to echo the stories that need to be told and illuminate the truest potential in others, Bill's mission is to spread empathy at scale, leading with compassion in a digital age. Bill brings a wealth of experience in strategy-focused technology solutions and consulting to his roles. As a U.S. Army officer veteran with top secret clearance, he has honed his skills in digital change management, ERP change management, talent development, and workforce communications. His specialties include podcasting, digital strategy, HR cloud, and enterprise collaboration tool adoption. With a diverse skill set and a strong foundation in empathy and connectedness, Bill is equipped to lead change initiatives on a global scale. Currently serving as a change manager at Adobe Technology Services, he works in the office of the CIO to deliver engaging, dynamic, and collaborative digital experiences. His role involves providing change management support and thought leadership through centers of excellence with a focus on driving technology-driven changes and accelerating adoption of change practices across Adobe. Prior to his role at Adobe, Bill served as a director of change at Microsoft, where he led global change programs to transform culture, empower people, and drive results that delight customers. His accomplishments include leading initiatives such as Viva Sales with Copilot and One Source of Truth for Microsoft content management platforms, with impressive adoption rates and measurable impact. In addition to his professional endeavors, Bill is deeply engaged in alumni activities at Johns Hopkins University, where he serves as a member of the Alumni Council and chairs the LGBTQIA Alumni Affinity Group. Through these roles, he fosters lifelong relationships among alumni and supports initiatives to create a welcoming and inclusive environment for all. With a commitment to fostering empathy, driving change, and empowering individuals and organizations, Bill Kirst continues to make a significant impact in the digital landscape and beyond. Obviously, listening to Bill's bio, you can hear the reason why he is on Create Magic at Work today. Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic.
Awoken within. The journey began when I was awoken by a star. I didn't know it then, but my journey would lead me on a search for who I am. Along the way, I experienced growth. I encountered glances of the galactic. I chose to listen inward, everward. As a result, I lost the script. I gained my words. When I reached my destination, I learned all I need to know resides within. Because of my journey, I know I will write the stories that need to be told. I trust the deepening of our journeys.
And that, my friends, was Bill Kirst, W.G. Kirst, reading this amazing poem for you titled Awoken Within from his latest book of poetry titled Everword, Run, Don't Walk, to buy a copy, available on Amazon. And our latest guest today here on the show, Bill, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you so much, Amy. It is great to be back with you. It's hard to believe that it was March of 2021 when we connected and you joined my platform and told your story. It's great to be back.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, Bill has an amazing podcast himself titled Coffee and Change. And it is such an Edgewalker podcast. The listeners of Create Magic at Work, Bill, are very familiar with the Edgewalker work. And Edgewalkers are people that can build bridges between different realms, whether they're cultural, whether it can be anything, right? And Coffee and Change really does that. And for everyone listening, I have been trying to get Bill as a guest on the show for quite some time. He's a busy guy and he's been traveling quite a bit, but he's an amazing thought leader for change. And he is an amazing thought leader in the space of AI and bringing, I mean, correct me if I say it wrong, Bill, but bringing unity consciousness to AI in a really beautiful way for the greater good. So I've been like, Bill, when are you going to be on the show to talk about this with everybody? And the last time that we connected in a recorded conversation was when I was a guest on Coffee and Change. And we just went back and sort of listened to that conversation from a couple of years ago and discovered we did it around a full moon time. And here we are today sitting across from each other virtually, and we are literally on a full moon day. And so the magic is here, and I'm so excited to have you share your poetry to inspire everyone and your wisdom with what's to come with the future of work and things like that. And I think that's an amazing Edgewalker blend, right? We have this amazing poet on the show that's also like leading change in AI. Like, talk about an Edgewalker. So Bill, welcome to Create Magic at Work.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And thank you so much for that reminder and that blending of the Edgewalker. Hello to your listeners, your amazing community. You know, I think back to the conversation that we had on that full moon. And I think it's really interesting how this full moon today is a Sagittarius full moon. And it's literally, you know, we were shooting arrows into the sky over 2 years ago, right? More than 2 years ago now that I think if I do my math. Yeah. And we were sort of attaching some intentions and some notes of possibility and gratitude to those arrows that we shot into the sky. We never knew where they would land, Amy. And it's just been so amazing to watch it all unfold with the pace of change, with all this technology influence, but also emerging, I don't want to say out of, because I don't necessarily think we're out of all the things we learned from the pandemic, but among the pandemic, how many lessons we've been privileged to learn along the way. And we're just getting started. So yeah, I love the Edgewalker concept. And I also want to thank you for recommending me to be interviewed for the Canvas Rebel, because in that interview, I was able to identify this blend of what I am, which is a rebel healer. And those two words came to me in that interview. And a few people have grabbed onto that and said, hey, I really like that. You're a rebel healer. So I'm excited to unpack today in this conversation with you and just honor the work that you're doing, that I'm doing, that those of us in our field are doing, and what we started in March of 2021.
Yeah. All rebel healers are welcome on Create Magic at Work and in the community. So we are extremely excited to have you here. Let's get into AI for a little bit. What led you to working in this AI space? And from a quantum leader, spiritual, intelligent perspective, I guess I want to hear. No, okay, let me take this back a little bit. Let's address first what led you to AI. And then if there's anything you could weave into that answer that can help people that might be feeling inadequate with this rise of AI in their job, or fear that might be coming up from that. I want to hear your thoughts on that. And we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So how I first started this dance with AI, and I'm intentionally calling it a dance because it requires different motion, it requires different movement, it requires deep listening, finding a frequency. And I found myself at the forefront of it when I actually worked at Microsoft a number of years ago. And as you mentioned, and in the bio, that I've been leading teams and organizations and people through change for close to 25 years now. So I've seen many arcs of change, many trends of change. And this AI trend, as we're seeing this era of AI, is that next evolution for us. And it is significantly consequential for our generation. Probably the most significant change we've seen, I would say, since the advent of the World Wide Web. I had the opportunity to be invited when I worked at Microsoft to help some of the people that were designing these tools, these AI tools, understand the impact of those tools on our humanity. And early on, it was conversations with people that were designing the product, engineering the product, and talking with customers. I happened to be probably the one person in the room, digital room or otherwise, that was asking the question, how is this going to impact our livelihood? And people were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, if AI can do all of these things, as an example, that we used to do personally or manually or even collaboratively, and it can do it for us. My next question is, well, then how are people expected to spend their time when, in fact, all the things that made us valuable, all the things that made us adequate, as you said, can now be done faster, more efficiently, in some cases, more creatively? Who am I left to be if my entire identity was wrapped up in this producing something that can now be replicated by something that is not human? Who am I? And I believe that question, who am I, is one of the hardest questions that any human can sit with. And it kept coming up, but nobody had an answer for it. And so I chose to dive headfirst into this quandary, into this paradox, into this conundrum, and try and figure out not the answers, but what are the additional questions that keep coming up that we're not asking when it comes to AI. And as a result, I've found myself at the intersection now of guiding large companies, teams, nonprofits, schools. When they're looking at AI, it's not just about the benefit and productivity and efficiency, but it's what about the humanity? What does it do to us? What do we give over to it? And part of the reason I chose to start my publishing career, if you will, with poetry is because we're in this soup of generated content. It's a lot of content being generated by machines, not by humans. And that's only going to accelerate. And I chose very intentionally to start with poetry because I believe poetry is an art. It is a craft. It is a spiritual speaking. And no machine can do it as beautifully as a human. So I wanted to make my imprint and tell people, I have a point of view on this, and I think we need to work really hard to hold on to our humanity at this time. And so that's how I got into it. And the more I learned and the more I continue to learn, because it's changing every day, Amy, and you mentioned that word inadequate. I think it's a beautiful word. How do we hold the inadequacy and hold on to our humanity? These are the questions I'm asking when it comes to AI. It's not just about implementation. It's about implication. It's not just about collaboration. It's about culture. It's not just about savings. It's about spirituality. And anyone can read the headlines right now. Right? The latest one I read is Scarlett Johansson is actually suing OpenAI because they used her voice from the movie Her on their latest model. Right? That is an essence of someone's humanity that has been taken and replicated and put out there. If we continue to do that without honoring, without recognizing, and without healing, we're going to lose who we are. And I, for one, don't want to do that.
Yes, really beautiful perspective. So as a quantum leader, how do you see ways that we can incorporate higher levels of consciousness into AI?
It's an amazing question. I think there's a couple things that come to mind for me. And the first one is quantum, because we're talking about quantum computing, right? The power of quantum computing that's making all this possible. The other piece I want to have people think about is quantum entanglement. And to me, it's very much about the intention and the manifestation that you put into these technologies that determine how we live. Because to me, we're at this precipice now where it used to be culture that influenced the technology that we built to improve or enhance our lives. It is now technology that we are building to either influence and impact or enhance our culture. And I actually think that switch happened almost overnight and while we weren't looking. And if we're not careful, and in some cases this is already happening, there are many people that are sleepwalking through this. And they think that they are, in fact, guiding the ship, but the ship is guiding them. So when I think about the quantum element of this, the quantum leadership of this, I encourage people to go back to the core basics of stillness, of intention, of meditation, of nature. I don't believe that we can stop this train. I do believe that we can make sure that we don't lose who we are while on this train. And there are some things that, to me, will always be true. Nature will always be true. The elements will always be true. Our breath will always be true. The ability to sit in stillness and let your own mind wander and daydream, and in many cases dream. And some people have, these dreams that actually tell them things. A lot of stuff downloads to us, and when we are in a state of rest, a deep, deep rest. To me, that is where the sanctity and the sacred art is going to come from. That's where the poetry is going to come from. That's where innovations that will not be made by machines, but will only be crafted by man or woman, will be possible. And to me, it's almost like we're going to have a different kind of renaissance. There is an awakening happening. I think you were early on in that. I was early on in that. I think there's a number of people that silently are having an awakening and choosing to use this technology differently, not to give over to it, but to let it augment, to let it be a companion. And that's where I get excited, because it can open up a lot of possibilities. And to me, the currency still resides in the questions, not in the answers. There's a level of loneliness that the world is battling. It has been battling for a really long time. And when people type into a chat GPT or a Copilot or anything of that realm, there's a few things I know to happen. One is those non-human entities will never tell the person that's entering the query in that they're wrong. And that's a wonderful feeling, but it's a false feeling.
Interesting.
The other part is the people that enter that query, oftentimes I believe that they're doing it from a place of loneliness. And loneliness can come in many forms. I want to be connected to another person. I want to be connected to more knowledge. Or I want to be connected to an experience that reminds me I'm alive. That's the pursuit of knowledge. So to me, it's wonderful that I can go into ChatGPT and enter a prompt, for example. How would I help a friend who is struggling with substance addiction? What's a way in which I could write a letter to a family that's trying to help a family member that might be encountering anxiety? Right? Those are all big questions that when we sit with them alone, we think, I don't know where to start. It's too big. Well, that's wonderful that we have this non-human element that can go scrape all this knowledge and help me get started. Some people call it the first draft. But I don't want it to replace the heartbreak. It will never replace the hope. It will never replace the heartbreak that comes along with being human and learning and trying and relating. And that's where I get a little bit worried. I mean, those of you who have seen the movie Her, it's all coming true.
Want to go to the part where you said some people are using it sleepwalking? Because obviously the huge energy of our conversation is to use it consciously and to perhaps use it in a way that can ripple out for the greater good. Can you give me some examples of ways, what you mean when you say some people are using it sleepwalking?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say it's probably not too dissimilar from the way that we use social media. So if you think about the way we use social media, and we've all seen the examples where people endlessly scroll, they're whether it's on TikTok or Instagram or Reels or Shorts or whatever it is that you choose to spend your time on there. Whether we know it or not, we're putting our energy force into that. And each time we are scrolling or watching, we are feeding a machine. We are feeding it input and data, and it's feeding the algorithm. And that algorithm is hijacking our senses. It knows what a dopamine hit is. It knows how to intentionally trick you into thinking that you're being served up the thing that you need most in that moment. And that is all done unconsciously, and I think quite dangerously. And there's a lot that people can read about how families and organizations are trying to take back that sacred power. And sadly, I think we're losing it that. And the reason is because at the base, we're animals. We're humans, but we are animals. And we can easily be hijacked by that sort of pleasure principle, or that sense of connection, which is actually false connection. If you take that into AI, I think it gets more complex, more profound, more quickly, because we now have introduced, wait, this container in which I can go into, I can ask it questions, I can have a conversation with it, I can create with it, I can tell it to play devil's advocate, I can tell it to be my best friend. All of this is creating essentially this falsification of the human experience. And there already are personas being created. Kendall Jenner has one out there, right? That you yourself can have essentially what appears to be to you a conversation with Kendall Jenner, but it's not really Kendall Jenner. It's an avatar that has been backed up by a large language model to make it seem that Kendall Jenner can be your best friend. And what I mean by sleepwalking through that is when we make decisions, knowing what we know, knowing the falsehoods, knowing the dangers, knowing the fact that this is not real, and we choose to do it anyway for the pleasure and for the sense of phantom connectedness. That to me is sleepwalking through it. And that is dangerous because we lose a sense of what is real. We lose a sense of what is pure. And that's why I believe that beyond all this, I don't know what it's going to look like, Amy, but beyond all this, I think we're going to turn back to the Stoics. We're going to turn back to the philosophers. We're going to turn to the poets, because those are going to be the only sources of knowledge at some point that weren't written or co-written or co-created by a machine. So that's where I'm spending my time, to make sure that I'm not sleepwalking.
When you shared all of that, I was thinking that is like one of the true differentiators between ego versus higher self. How am I going to consciously use this tool? And if I'm using it to feed my ego, I go back to you saying it's never going to tell you you're wrong. That feels a little dangerous to me, unless we're aware that, hey, this is a tool I'm using and I'm still me. I still have my thoughts, my human experience, my feelings. I'm not using this to feed my ego or to connect with something that is phantom. I love how you said that. So I think that for me, just in you sharing all of your insights, it's like, how do I ensure this isn't feeding my ego when I'm using this? And a lot of us use ChatGPT. I'll write something and I'll pop it in and be like, hey, is this grammatically correct? Like, just quick, right? When before my mom used to be a proofreader for court transcripts way back in the day. And, I'd have to print it for her, take it to her. She'd have to mark it up with a red pen. And, it took a couple of days to get things back in that process. So now I throw it in, is this grammatically correct? And then I consciously was noticing, like, am I leaning too much on this thing to tell me what's right? Or to tell me what I wrote could be tweaked in a different way when this is just coming from my essence. And we both, I love poetry. I love art. I love all of those things. So I love this blend of what we're bringing to the table today. And you write a poem in Everword that speaks to that struggle, to me anyway, when I read it. And I'd love for you to share it. And it's called We Fight the Autofill. And I think this is a great time to share that piece.
Absolutely. I will preface with there is some strong language in this, so for those listening, I won't censor it. I think that's okay for you on this particular one, Amy.
Yep, we're okay with that.
Perfect. So it's titled "We Fight the Autofill." Isn't every entry a tug of war with a wiser machine? Suggestions are supposed to be shaping, but it feels like it's just excavating, eviscerating. Me, if not for my words, my purest thoughts unheard, then who am I left to be in a sea of soliloquy? When I say my every win, I mean my every win. Don't force your wares and days on me, so suggestively, surreptitiously, lazily. Will we ever see? I fight. I choose to fight. Every tap I zap, that floating X keeps coming back. Those grayed out letters tease me, seducing me, like the coming of a familiar song on a list that plays you. Hovering, saying, wouldn't it just be easy to let me complete thee? I am not here to teach the lifeless, envisioning idea of silica. To speak for me is to truncate me. Efficiency be damned. It's suffocating who we are, who we strive and strain to be, free. Fight the autocorrect. Fuck your autofill. We are too complex and ought to be completed, mostly by the stars and layers long since deleted.
Oh, I got the chills right now. So good, Bill. I mean, it was almost like an art piece describing what I just said, like me having that internal struggle, like you just put that into a poem. So thanks for putting this beautiful gift of Everword into the world. And again, you can find it, this book of poetry on Amazon. Bill, if you can give 2 tips from a spiritually intelligent lens, meaning how do we make wise and compassionate decisions for ourselves and for others, even when we're under great stress, and maintain inner peace while we're working with AI, integrating AI into our lives, what would you recommend they be?
So I'm going to go back to something you reminded me of many years ago. And I think you had mentioned it was called the Moses Code. And in that reminder, there was a part where you said to me, there's this phrase that a lot of times people misread or mistake, which is, I am that I am. But where the comma lies and where the intonation lies in that changes it entirely. So I remember in our discussion, it was quite an emotional part of our discussion towards the end. You reminded me and the listeners of, I am that, comma, I am. I am that, I am. And my advice to people as they sit in this struggle, and part of the reason I think it's so beautiful that you actually unprompted asked me to read that poem, is because what's in that poem is the paradox, is the struggle. And I encourage people to not run away from that feeling that you're feeling, which is whether it's inadequacy or I'm feeling behind or I don't feel okay about this. And remember, there's a reason. There's a fire that is unique inside of you. Every single one of us have it. Think of it like your pilot light. And I think as people face these challenges and look at these technologies, something inside of them will say, do what you can to hold on to what makes you, you. And in your reminder that I am that I am, seek that out in others. If we remember by seeing, by recognizing, by acknowledging the humanity in others, what does that do? It brings up the humanity in us. It's why when people are in a state of depression or anxiety, one of the first things people recommend that they can do is go do something to help another human. Go volunteer, go connect, go be with an elderly, go work in a soup kitchen. And it's not from a standpoint of you should or punishment. it is from the standpoint of remember the beauty and the humanity, and gratitude is oftentimes our greatest medicine. And I think in all of this technology and all of these things, one of the tips I would say to people is seek out that humanity and let it light up your own humanity. And the second tip I would say is when you get to that place and you're feeling that spiritual connection that makes you unique to who you are, start writing, start journaling, put something down in some place that is not a machine. Part of what this poetry book came about was everything that is in this book started off in journals, started off in diaries. And they weren't back to back. They weren't on, sequential pages. They were spread across diaries over the course of 20 years. And at some point in my life, I needed to revisit those things. And it was in those diaries and in those journals that I had handwritten where these words literally popped off the page to me and had a whole new vibrancy. And I knew that when I sat down to transcribe them onto a machine, because that's what we have to do to publish the work, there was a little bit of that essence that was going to be gone. And I grieved that. But I believe that the power of human writing or drawing or singing or crafting or sculpting, something that is divinely you and cannot be replicated, is part of this journey. I believe that's the only way we will find our way alongside some of this technology, is to dance in our own humanity. So those would be kind of two tips I would recommend for people. And understand that nobody's getting this right. There is no right. The only right is to listen from the inside. Understand your convictions, stand in your values, assess these things through those lenses. That's the only right answer.
Love how you have taken us back to the raw essence of being a human with the simple tip of writing your inspirational downloads or hits on a piece of paper and not putting it into a machine. Yeah. It sounds so simple, yet I found myself at one point, I was writing something by hand and I was like, I don't even know how to write anymore because I've typed so much.
Right. Do you recognize your handwriting anymore?
Exactly. And that is true human essence. There's nothing in between that. Your words on paper and the awareness that you have of grieving, putting your poetry into a machine, and then it is just so profound. Yet that is something that everyone can take away and really hold on to with our humanity. I'm going to ask you a classic Edgewalker question. I mean, you're such an Edgewalker. And I'm going to ask you from Dr. Judy Neal, who wrote Edgewalkers, before we pull a journal card for you. We're going to pull a journal prop card for you.
Yes.
It's going to be a generic type question, so bear with me on this, but I really want to hear your answer on this. So with all of our conversation that we've just had, what can you sense but not yet see?
Good question. So I can sense but not yet see that we will over-index on all of this, that people will get to a place where they cannot trust anything. They do not know whether it has fidelity, whether it has provenance, whether it has credibility. And as a result, there will be a pushback, a rejection at a level unexpected by humanity of all things that are in fact not crafted, made, curated, or touched by humans. And so if I close my eyes and I think about it, I can literally imagine us almost having a reverse revolution where people are going to want to go into spaces and places that have only ever been influenced, made, structured, or put together by human ingenuity and human imperfection. So I think there's going to be these imprints of imperfection that suddenly become far more priceless than anything that resides in the ones and zeros. We may find ourselves going, or it appears that we're going backwards at some point. I hope that is not triggered by some cataclysmic event, but I sense that. And it's in those moments we will need our humanity. If all of this turns off and all of the power is gone, it doesn't really mean anything. And then we're left in our homes with our books and our candlelight and our journal prompt cards, hopefully. And that, to me, is what I sense, but I cannot see yet. I'm trying not to paint too dark a picture, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. This was such a powerful conversation. I'm gonna pull a journal prompt card for everyone listening. We're gonna give everyone a message today from the universe on this beautiful full moon day. I've had the chills like 3 times in this conversation, and then look what we get. We get innovation. Right?
There we go. Look at that.
So the message is innovation. Bill, I'm dying right now. Like, this is a deck of 33 cards. I know you have them, and I typically freak out at the end of every episode when I pull a card, but this is like the beyond freak out. Here's the affirmation. I honor imaginative ideas by writing them down.
Wow.
I can't. So, the questions on here, you've kind of already answered throughout this amazing conversation. Maybe there's 2 questions on here, and you can just share your thoughts around the whole thing. What ideas for progress have people maybe been overlooking that they can think about? Or, let's leave it at that. What ideas for progress have people maybe been overlooking with all of this?
Well, again, talk about quantum, right? There we just saw an example of the quantum doing its thing and the universe saying, hey, let's give a reminder to the world that we don't need permission to slow down. And part of what we've overlooked that would actually bring us progress is the art and the craft and the creativity of something that cannot be generated. We keep talking about generative AI, right? And I understand that's really powerful and it can do a lot of things, but I want people to think about what society might need, what progress might be hinging upon that which cannot be generated, but can only be created by you. Singly, individually, spiritually, universally. That is what I want people to think about when they think about the progress ahead.
So good. So good. Bill, thank you so much. How can people connect with you, learn more about your work?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for mentioning the book. Certainly, if you liked those poems, there's 88 pages more of those type poems in the book Everword, which is available on Amazon. I self-published it there. It's also on Kindle. I will eventually do an audiobook, and the universe is telling me through these readings to do an audiobook version. So certainly check that out. I am profound on LinkedIn. As you mentioned, Amy, I am in this beautiful intersection between guiding and shaping the technologies that we use with companies and organizations, and these passion, spiritual growth work that I do. And I write about a lot of that on LinkedIn. So they can just look up Bill Kirst on LinkedIn. They can also go to my website, which is Journey Everword. So all one word, Journey Everword, which is sort of a companion to the poetry book. I recently started writing some articles on Substack with some deeper, a lot of people really enjoyed the poetry. They enjoyed the writing on LinkedIn, but they said, it leaves me wanting more. And I want to know the more that is Bill Kirst. I want to know the Bill Kirst beyond the professional. I want to know the author beyond the first collection. And so I've started writing some Substack articles out there. So if you just look up Everword, again, it's a digital companion to some of the poetry. That's the best place to get started. And of course, if you don't mind the sound of my voice, but I don't talk all that much on my podcast, feel free to listen to the podcast. There's 150 episodes, 8 seasons, incredible guests such as yourself, Amy. And I've been listened to on all 7 continents. And it's helped a lot of people in this world. So I will continue to do it until the universe tells me to stop.
Love it. Coffee and Change is Bill's podcast. So like I said before, for Everword, the book of poetry, run, don't walk, to follow and subscribe to Coffee and Change. It just has that magic in it that help us tap into being human. And this was amazing, Bill. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Create Magic at Work podcast and bringing your magic and wisdom and insights and art to the community. We're deeply appreciative for you being here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was great to connect. And I loved your prompt cards. I use them with my teams all the time. I know sometimes I will do my morning ritual and I get to tag you in the great work that you're doing. And these are wisdom nudges, and they're coming from the other side of the void, which we do not understand. And I sometimes watch movies like Interstellar, and I'm reminded that's what this is for me, these little nudges from the other side. So thank you for creating this platform and this space to allow people like me to step into our gifts.
Yes, the rebel healers, they are all welcome here. Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.